The analytics, I don't get the analytics.
You know what they used to always say to me? Why don't you smile more? Why don't you laugh more? And I said, you know what I laugh? When someone tells me a funny joke. I'm not just going to...
Do you get the sense that he cares about any of this?
No.
I don't think he cares about anything.
I don't think he cares about
He cares about horses.
What is patois?
Look it up.
How do you even spell patois?
Yes, I already knew you didn't know that one.
I thought it was patois, P-A-T-O-I-R. I Googled it, and it pulls up Urban Dictionary. A stupid Frenchman who was a Boy Scout and had sex with a moose.
What?
So how do you spell patois?
I know it's stupid. I don't care.
Come on. And you know why there's pressure on you, pal? You know why there's pressure on you? Because you've never gotten out of the second round.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Ding on the Athletic NBA Show. I'm Dave DuFour here with Mo Dakhil for your Game 2 recap. Big night, Mo. Bunch of Game 2s in the playoffs, and the NBA drops a bomb on us in the middle of the Clippers Suns game. Just absolutely throwing everyone off, trying to sneak in the news of Draymond's suspension. We'll get to that in a minute, but we're here to talk hoops, and let's talk about this game because the Suns and Clippers now have a series. It's tied 1-1. The Suns offense came alive, 123-109. They beat the Clippers. And Mo, early on, I was getting nervous for the Suns, but then they had that flurry. They scored 10 out of 11 possessions to close the first half and tie the game up. And then it was a lot of Kevin Durant, but Devin Booker was the star of the show. 38 points, 4 of 7 from 3, 9 assists, and tenacious defense tonight. Devin Booker, star of the game.
Absolutely. I mean, it was phenomenal. The shots he was making, to be honest, like as much as we were killing Phoenix, they were really in game one until the last couple of possessions. And we kind of, I think, lost that idea throughout the course of when we were talking about this series. They were right in the mix the entire time. And I think this is a beautiful display of shot making across the board. Clippers also got to get better. I mean, the scenarios where Zubac is not up to touch a lot on some of those 3-point attempts when Booker was coming off the pick and roll for threes and things like that. A massive just mistake across the board from them. And that's really kind of the stuff that let him get going.
Another thing, I thought that they were closing out really, really hard on Booker, and he started taking advantage of it. He loves to get going downhill, and in the fourth quarter, he was faster than everybody on the court. And so when you had Eric Gordon and you had Norman Powell flying out on him, and he was taking advantage, pushing the ball out and getting inside, getting to the free throw line. A great overall game. And look, Kevin Durant was out there too, had 25 points. But Mo, you sent me a text during the first half of this game because this is kind of how we do the running thing when we're taking notes, you and me especially. We try to talk a little bit. What's on our mind during this game? And you said, does Monty Williams have the guts to bench Chris Paul? And I was like, I don't know. Second half showed us why he couldn't bench Chris Paul. Number one, they don't have the depth. But number two, man, masterful second half for Chris Paul.
I mean, Chris Paul went from being washed in the first half to washing the Clippers in the second half. Like he was hitting his mid-range at a wild percentage. He went 6 of 8 in the second half for 12 points. That was the difference in the game. These were the shots he was missing at the end of game one that he was making in this one. And I think that's one of the major differences in this game, and this is what makes the Suns most dangerous when they're ready to roll. Right? Because we saw it. Hey, they went and doubled Kevin Durant. He got off the ball quickly. It was Devin Booker on the second side. You have opportunities for them all across the board. You try to pressure your defense and load up on Booker. KD's going to be open. And then you have then you have Chris Paul running pick and roll, pushing it and driving and coming off the situations, finding Ayton and things like that. This is the Suns that your team should be afraid of.
Yeah, and look, between Ayton, Chris Paul, and Booker, and not to mention Kevin Durant, they just completely dominated that drop coverage. Just ate them up in the mid-range. DeAndre Ayton had a really nice game, 14 points, had 13 rebounds, had some key offensive rebounds late to kind of seal the deal. But still not the force that we want inside, but it doesn't really matter when you can shoot like that.
I'm quitting on trying to get him to be forceful. I've given up. He wins. I yield. You're just never going to be a forceful player, and that's the end of it. And I'll every now and then won't be able to resist myself and will tweet something about it, but still, it is what it is for what he does. I think he had a solid game. The 5 fouls, I like that he had that. It was aggressive. It meant he was being aggressive in how he was playing and attacking, and I think that's important there. I don't want him to have a game where he's just getting 1 or 2 fouls and playing a lot of finesse. He was important. Listen, they all played a big game. One guy we got to talk about, and I didn't mention it in the rundown or anything like that. Torrey Gregg's been absolutely phenomenal for the Suns. We were wondering who's going to be the 5th guy for them. He had a big game in game 1, and he followed up in game 2, knocking down shots. He's been phenomenal for them, and he did a good job pressuring Kawhi. You're not going to stop Kawhi, but he did a good job kind of pressuring him.
Yeah, and 5 of 8 from 3, which was huge because, we talked about how he was being just left wide open, and you got to make him pay in those instances, and he has so far in the series. All right, let's swing it to the Clippers. Russell Westbrook was 3 of 19 in the last game, and we talked about it. I mean, it was just an awful game from him, and then he comes up huge at the end and saves it. And Mo, this game, he was fantastic. He was awesome. And then they lose. I don't know, man. I throw my hands up. I do want to give him credit. 28 points, 9 of 16 from the field, 2 of 3 from 3. Mo, he really did let the game come to him when they were leaving him wide open. He wasn't getting baited into bad threes. They took only 3, and I didn't think any of them were bad threes. None of them were rushed. None of them were early shot clock. This was an under control game, and honestly, he was the key to their success for most of the game. Like when they were having good success in the first half, he was spurring it on.
Yeah, it was some fool's gold a little bit with what he was doing in the first half. Like the shots he was making, and he was doing good. He was doing a good job. Like you said, let the game come to him, didn't force a lot of things. He was good on the offensive end. I didn't think he was very good defensively. He had moments defensively, but not great. I didn't think he was really that locked in on that end of the court. And I think that's one of those things that really showed. And that was the difference between game 1 and game 2. And I think that was the game changer for them, for the Clippers in that respect. Offensively, I felt like in the second half, even when he was making the shots he was making in the first half, I said, he might shoot you out. And he kind of did. Dave, he had a god-awful turnover down the stretch of this game. He had one where it looked like he was trying to get it to Eric Gordon because he thought Eric Gordon was open, and he threw this thing like 5 feet above his head, way out, like almost out of bounds. Like it's just an awful turnover. And of course, the Suns came back and scored on the other end. I think it was the DeAndre Ayton layup from Chris Paul in the pick and roll. Like at that point, I was like, that's ball game. That was such a bad swing right there. And it can be troublesome. And listen, the Clippers need somebody to step up next to Kawhi. Listen, I mean, Westbrook did a great job in the first couple of quarters, wasn't able to sustain it. I think that's going to be the answers the Clippers are going to need to be trying to, that needs to be the question the Clippers are trying to answer as they look for the stuff in game 3.
Yeah, absolutely. And as Mac for a better tomorrow says in the YouTube chat, he smoked a dunk too there at the end of the game. Chris Paul got his hand on that ball, I think, but Chris Paul also a couple of deflections on Russell Westbrook passes. I mean, Chris Paul, again, fantastic second half. We were ready to give up on him, Mo, and I can't believe it. Kawhi Leonard, 31 points, 3 of 5 from 3. I mean, he looks like Kawhi Leonard. I don't know what more to say at this point. He had an amazing steal on a KD crossover where his mitt was just sitting there waiting for the ball. Like he had read that the crossover was coming, gets the steal, drives down court with 2 players on him, one of whom was 7 foot tall Kevin Durant, and just sort of shrugs them off like the Incredible Hulk for a dunk. And Kawhi, to me, has been the best player in this series both ways. I'll give Booker the tip of the cap for being right behind him there. He's got to be even better than this, Mo.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he can do much more. What else can we ask from him? He's doing a great job on defense. Like you said, just him ripping that crossover away, unbelievable with everything that he's doing. He's carrying the offense. He disappeared a little bit in the fourth quarter at the end, and a lot of it had to do with because all the Suns did was we're just going to deny the hell out of him, and it worked, and it forced somebody else to kind of score. I don't know if he can do much more. I don't think it's fair to ask him to do much more, to be honest with you. He played a ton of minutes, 38 minutes tonight, and I think that's, tough one with the game coming on Thursday night. Like, it's not like there's 2 games in between. Played a heavy load, I believe, in the first game too. I can't remember his minutes total.
I think it was around 42 minutes in the first game.
Yeah, that's a lot for Kawhi in 2 straight games with 1 day in between. So this is going to be kind of loading up on him, and you have to worry about him wearing down to a degree with everything that he's got to do on both ends. Somebody needs to step up for the Clippers in this game.
Yeah, sorry. So we've got 2 games in the series. It's going to be in LA. You said it was on Thursday. I think I didn't double check the schedule. But let me ask you, Mo, do you feel like the tide has sort of turned and the Clippers maybe lost their chance here? Or do you feel like it's a more even series than we would have thought before the series started?
No, I think it's a more even series than we thought. I think a lot of us just kind of made the assumption without Paul George, the Clippers are going to have a lot of problems. And we saw the problems in this game too. But they've also shown a ton of fight throughout the series. And I think, even in game 1, they came back. They were down 10. They came back and continued to get going from there. And I think the issues going forward for the Suns is like the depth. What happens if Torrey Craig's not hitting shots? What happens if we saw when Chris Paul's mid-range isn't hitting, it's a problem for them. These things aren't going to go away. Chris Paul had a great game and all of that stuff. I was ready to retire him at halftime. So I think there's a lot of stuff there where it's like, let's see if he can continue to do this, because he's also up there in age and playing a heavy minutes load. Same for KD, same for Booker. So I think it's going to be interesting, but this is going to be a closer series. I don't think this is the tide has turned situation.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's get to the big NBA news drop that happened during this game. Obviously, the Draymond Green, Domantas Sabonis situation where Draymond stomped Domantas Sabonis at the end of game 2 in the Sacramento Golden State series, and he gets ejected. Well, here's the payback for Draymond Green. He has been suspended without pay, and they cite a history of actions, Mo. And that, I think, is kind of the key thing here is that Draymond does have a track record. This isn't even the first playoff game he will have missed for something like this. This is a huge deal, and this could be the end of this series for the Warriors.
I might even go a step further. This might be the end of the Warriors. This becomes a massive issue here. How much are you going to keep? I mean, as great as Draymond is and important to this team, and we keep saying heart and soul of the team, all that fun stuff, how much are we going to keep putting up with this? And I think that's one of those things that's really a concern, and I don't mean it to be a hot take or anything like that, but that's a problem. I mean, this is going to hurt them in the series. I mean, it's going to possibly end their season. They go down 3-0 against Sacramento. I don't care how good they are at home. They're not winning that series. And I think that's the issues at hand. And I don't think it was just the stomping, Dave. We've all seen the video of him egging on the crowd, and it had a lot of shades of what he was doing in Memphis last year when Memphis completely destroyed them in a game, and he's out there jumping up and down and doing all that stuff. Like, make no mistake about it. Adam Silver was in this crowd in Sacramento for game 2. He definitely took notice on how Draymond was acting towards the crowd in that response. There's no way to think that didn't play a role in his suspension. I think this is a massive misstep by him, and I'm not surprised.
Yeah, and now the Warriors are scrambling. They're already small. They're going to be smaller. When we're thinking about the on-court situation for them, I mean, they now I assumed they were going to start small to begin game 3. That lineup that they sort of found, with Gary Payton and with Draymond at the center, I assume that would, at least some variation of that would be the starting lineup for game 3. And now I guess you have to go with Looney. But, as you mentioned in One Mo Thing today, they have to play drop with Looney, and the Kings have absolutely crushed it. What's the points per possession in drop for the Kings right now?
I think in game 2, it was 1.3. And I think that's just a massive problem there. They're killing them, absolutely killing them in drop coverage. And it wasn't just Looney. Draymond was in a lot of drop as well. So I don't think it's just something with Looney. It's their stance on it. This is the one thing that has confused me with just the whole series, Dave. I told you on Nerder She Wrote, I was convinced the Warriors were going to win this series because they were going to deny the catches to Sabonis. They've done the exact opposite. They are basically making it the easiest pass for the Kings to make and then try to play defense after that. And it's become a massive problem for them with just not being able to contain the guards. And I think that's a critical misstep from the game plan area. And now without Draymond, and you're going to be smaller, you're already hemorrhaging offensive rebounds beforehand. Now you're smaller. This is going to be an extremely difficult chance for them to pull off a win. They're going to need everybody playing a perfect game. Clay's going to have to go like 8 of 10 from 3. Curry's going to have to go nuclear. You're going to have to get shots from Dante DiVincenzo. Jordan Poole actually has to play basketball, has to be able to defend on the other end of the court and knock down shots. Looney's can't get in foul trouble because they don't have any other. The next big that they're probably going to go to is JaMychal Green. And that's a problem. And, Jonathan Kuminga is not ready to take on Sabonis. He's going to get beat up by Sabonis if he has to guard him. I don't know a way the Warriors can win that game.
Yeah, it's looking pretty bleak, but they always have Steph Curry, and it's hard to bet against Steph Curry. There were other playoff games earlier in the day, Mo, that were not interrupted by the NBA dropping some news. The Cleveland Cavaliers have evened up their series with the New York Knicks, 107-90. Shades of two things for the Cavs. Number one, that defense showed up. Man, they were excellent in this game, just stuffing the Knicks the whole game. But Darius Garland showed up, 32 points, 26 in the first half, which really was all she wrote for the Knicks. They just didn't have the juice to get it done in the second half to mount a huge comeback. The Cavs look great, but Mo, I worry about the offense being sustainable for them. I mean, this has been an issue for them all year. Half court offense. Darius Garland's great. That's awesome. 32 points. He's a great player. I still am worried they're going to be able to generate offense like this consistently for the rest of the series.
Well, I think part of it is, and I think the important aspect of it is, they got Garland involved. That was the problem at the end of the the whole fourth quarter of that game one. They really didn't get Garland a lot of touches and give him a lot of chances to cook. And I think this game from early on, you could see the mindset of like, we're going to let Garland go and start attacking. And it really paid off. Massive dividends. And then on the defensive end, because you brought up the defense, there was a phenomenal possession early in the game against Quickly where Garland switches on to Quickly off of a handoff and then avoids two different screens. Does a good job navigating going over the screens. And then the Cavs trap him in the corner, force a turnover, and get going in the other way. That is critical for them. Like that kind of defense and that sort of grind from them. I think this is going to be a 7-game series. I thought that this is extremely tight both ways for both teams, but I think I was really just impressed with the attitude Garland came out with and the attention of the entire Cavs team of like, we're going to get Garland to go off, and he did.
One of the biggest takeaways from this game, I think, if you're just like glancing at the box score, Isaac Okoro only plays 3 minutes in this game. Karis LeVert played 40 off the bench, was plus 23, had 24 points, 4 of 9 from 3. My assumption, Mo, he's going to be the starting lineup for game 3 because Cleveland knows that they need more offense. Now, if they don't go with Karis LeVert, my guy Danny Green fits them really, really well and still allows you to bring Karis LeVert off the bench. How do you feel about Danny Green being in the starting lineup for a playoff team in 2023? It's a good idea, right?
I thought you were going to start this whole thing. I mean, the entire podcast and show with Danny Green. I thought the intro was going to be Danny Green knocking down shots and all of those things. Look, I think I was surprised to see Danny out there. I was like, oh, wow, they really are reaching and things like that. But if he can give him minutes, I think it matters in that sense. I think the moment is too big for Okoro. I think he's really kind of shown that. I think you're right. I think LeVert will end up starting game 3, and then we'll see from there how it goes. I think they'll give Okoro some run in that instance, but they have Danny there ready to go to it. But LeVert's going to play the big minutes, and it's going to be a question of which LeVert are you getting. Game 1, LeVert stunk up the place. He was horrible. Game 2, LeVert was better. There were still some possessions he hijacked, but for the most part, he was solid for them and made some critical plays. So which one are you going to get? And if you get game 1, LeVert, then I think you're going to have to start scrambling and you'll see more of your guy.
Yeah. I hope so. And we should note, end of this game, Tom Thibodeau had his starters out there, and after the game, Julius Randle. Yeah, after the game, Julius Randle did explain that he actually asked to stay in the game. He's trying to get his legs under him and get his conditioning back up because he's been dealing with that ankle injury. Well, they get a steal. The Knicks get a steal, and Julius Randle has a breakaway dunk attempt thwarted by Jared Allen, but Jared Allen comes in wildly and dangerously. And that was an ugly, nasty foul, and he gets a flagrant for that. But even though it looked really, really awful for Julius Randle, seems like he's going to be okay and should be fine to go for game 3. But that was kind of dirty.
Well, there was one, it was fake hustle. He was coming from behind on the play. There was no chance he was going to make a play on the ball. And I think it was just him trying to go like, look, coach, I'm running back. I'm playing hard and all of that stuff. That fake hustle can always lead to injuries. That's a very dangerous play in that instance right there. I'm glad Julius is okay and we're ready to roll because we don't need any more injuries for the rest of the playoffs.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm glad Jared Allen's okay. It was dangerous for him too. And by the way, dirty play, not dirty player. Important to note there. And then the Celtics, they're up 2-0 on the Atlanta Hawks. I think the big question for this, Mo, is who wants to trade for Trae Young this summer? He was just abused in this game. DeJounte Murray. Yeah, DeJounte Murray led the way for the Hawks with 29 points. If we talk about the Celtics, I think you got to start with their guard play. Derek White has just been amazing for them. Malcolm Brogdon coming off the bench and Marcus Smart. I mean, there is no drop-off in their rotation, no matter who's out there. And all three of those guys at one point played together in this game, Mo. The Celtics might be a better version of last year's team. If Rob Williams can ramp up and get himself back in the starting lineup, God, did we overlook the Celtics?
No, I think everybody has been saying it's either Boston or Milwaukee that's going to go to the finals. I don't think it's tough to say we overlooked it when we said one of two teams is going to the finals and they're one of the teams. That's not overlooking them. I think that's kind of the scenario there with them. These games shouldn't be close. There's a massive gulf between these two teams and how they play, how they attack. The Hawks have too much talent to be this bad, but they're that bad. They struggle they don't have an offensive identity. They're trying to figure it out with a new coach hired midway through the season and trying to kind of find that whole system and vibe. It's pretty clear Trae Young is not well liked, not just within his own team. You saw it in the athletic poll of players that Trae Young's came in as the most overrated player in the NBA. And that's amongst his peers, or what he thinks might be his peers. I think there's a lot of things that are problematic there. For the Celtics, just phenomenal. I mean, Jason Tatum, 29 points, chilling. I think one thing I'd worry about is those guys playing way too many minutes. And I think this is you should be able to close out the Hawks without having to have Jason Tatum play 40 minutes, Jaylen Brown playing 35 minutes. I think that's one area I'd like to see them kind of close out and not let them back into these games.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe the Celtics are just thinking we only have 2 games left, and then we're gonna have like 10 days off.
Well, no, they're playing the winner of they're playing the winner of Philly Brooklyn. And I think we know who's going to win that one too.
I think we know who's going to win. All right, well, that's going to do it for today's show, folks. Thank you guys for listening. For Mo DeKeel, I'm Dave DuFour, and this has been the Daily Ding on the Athletic NBA Show. Mo, let's get out of here.
Ding, ding.
All right, so that's the end of our audio show. We'll hang out a little bit and take some questions for the good folks hanging out on YouTube. And I'm going to start with Vance Williams here. This is the last year of Trae Young in Atlanta, Mo?
I think so. I don't have an answer other than
feels like it, right?
The funnier thing is I just wonder who's going to trade for him. And what's that trade look like? Because I don't know. We're so used to superstars going for a massive amount and a big haul. I don't know if somebody's going to want to give a big haul.
Is he a superstar? I think that's the big question. Listen, the rumor came out the day that they had the play-in game, right? Or the day before, the trade rumor that the Hawks were considering maybe trading him this summer. I didn't see a single fake trade for Trae Young from a single fan or anyone. That tells me so much about whether it's just the discourse or not. It tells me a lot about the perception of Trae Young as a player. He doesn't seem like the most fun guy to play with. Doesn't have the greatest reputation. Francisco says Trae Young for Ben Simmons. And,
Trae Young with that team in Brooklyn would actually work.
That would
because you have a ton of defenders around them. There's absolutely zero reason for the Hawks to take on Ben Simmons. But like that's the kind of team that would work for Trae Young.
Yeah, I don't hate Trae Young to Brooklyn for the reason that you just pointed out. And I thought Mac for a better tomorrow makes a good point here, right? Kings are making the Warriors look old and slow. And in particular, De'Aaron Fox is making everybody look slow. And Mo, in your video, I thought you did a great job in one more thing, which if you guys don't follow Mo on Twitter, that is one of the you're gonna know what's happening in the game for game 3 if you just go and watch what he points out about the drop coverage there. Allowing him to get downhill. Again, it's sort of like what we talked about with the Clippers sort of over closing out on Devin Booker because he wants to just blow past you. It was same with Fox. When you're in the drop and then you're sending one guy to the screener and the ball, well, when Fox comes off that screen, it's over because the big is just sitting in the paint and he's a sitting duck. So what do you want to see the Warriors do to kind of counteract that speed from the Kings?
Yeah, and I just want to Mac's point of they're making the Warriors look old and slow. It's because the Warriors are old and slow. Like, I think that's something we need to start discussing about it. All year long, we've been talking about, and I believe somebody on this podcast might have predicted somebody going to the finals, and that team's down 0-2. Not going to name names, but it's definitely not me. Sorry, Dave, I had to do it.
I mean, it's been rough at my house the last couple nights. I gotta be honest, man. Like I'm eating a lot of King's Crow, and it's not that I don't like the team. I just, my belief in the Warriors is philosophical, and it's just like it's sort of like the run with the Spurs. I can't count them out until they're out, and as long as you got Stephen Curry, you got a shot, even without Draymond Green. Like, I'm not ready to rule them out in game 3. It is going to be hard. The matchup is going to be tough, but Steph Curry is magic, and you just sometimes can't account for that.
One thing I think to watch for in game 3, especially now with the news of Draymond being out, is I think they're going to play a ton more zone.
Yeah, that's actually my expectation too. They had a lot of success there at the end of the game. Okay, now if Domantas Sabonis is out, which I don't expect,
he's going to play, guys. He's going to play.
Yeah, we don't.
Some
I'm
of this
not really
is
willing to entertain. Yeah,
some of this was gamemanship to get the suspension. Just saying,
a little bit of pro wrestling here, but if Domantas was not going to play, I mean, then that's a huge advantage for that helps the Warriors quite a bit. Sabonis is, interior presence on the offensive glass has been huge.
Counterpoint.
Ooh,
Sabonis hasn't been that great. And I think it doesn't matter.
And Len has killed them.
And the Kings, and it's odd to say, you're talking about Danny Green on the show. Alex Len actually having a playoff role is amazing. I
Plus
think
17 in 21 minutes in this series so far.
Yes, and I think that is a massive. Excuse me. De'Aaron Fox is killing them.
Yeah,
Malik Monk is killing them. If Domantas Sabonis sits, it's fine because those other guys are still playing.
Yeah. Well, let's just follow up. We'll stay with the Kings. From Darkness 38-27 here. Do you think they can make a deep playoff run? I mean, why not? I mean, what's a deep run? Is it conference finals?
We're hitting a weird stage in the NBA. And this is what I'm going to say. It's like, I'm going to say conference finals is a deep run. When you're one of the final 4 teams, that's a deep run to me. We're hitting a weird stage where, just think about it this way. Atlanta was a team that made it to the conference finals. Nobody believed in them. The Mavs made it to the conference final and nobody believed in them. This might be the year the Kings might be that team. I'm going to go against it and say no, but that's just because I'm a hater and that is what I do. So I'm not really going to be able to say much more than that. But I think this is I think it's something where I think they'll struggle in the second round. If it's the Lakers.
Yeah, that's the big concern, right? And speaking of, the Lakers now looking like they might be the favorites to come out of that series because Ja might be out. I do like this from Grape Ape that the Kings should trade a Kwangu, or I'm assuming you mean the Hawks, to OKC. Capella is the guy I keep thinking about for OKC. That's the sort of center that they could really use. I mean, he would make a huge difference for them. So, I don't know. How do you feel about that, Mo?
I like it. I like Okongwu. I think actually that is a good, perfect guy for them for this. Just time wise, young, everything fits that timeline with all of that stuff. A little more girth and things like that, I think would help them and help with that rebounding deficiency that OKC has. I don't think the Hawks are going to entertain trading him, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's too much insurance for Capella. All right, well, time for us to wrap it up. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Again, we're doing these every single night, and man, I'm lucky. I got to do 2 of these this week with my guy Mo, and we'll be doing Nerder on Friday. So for Mo,
It's a lot of Dave.
I know it's a lot of Dave and Mo.
I love it.
But for Mo, I'm Dave. Thank you guys for hanging out. Appreciate you. I have to click twice.